Hello, First Lutheran family. This is Pastor Phil with this week's devotion. I want to thank you for your flexibility on worship schedules this past week. Unfortunately, our live stream didn't work, and we're still working out the problems with that. We're not sure exactly what's going on with our internet capacity, but we're on top of it to try to get that worked out. So I apologize for any frustration that may have come up when trying to watch the service yesterday. We're going to continue with the beatitudes today. The blessings proclaimed by Jesus in this collection of teachings in Matthew chapter 5. We're continuing a similar theme from last week when we talked about blessed are the poor in spirit. And we talked about that means being spiritually depleted, that Jesus is sort of upending things by proclaiming blessings in unexpected places, because there was this mindset that earthly, worldly blessings followed God's own blessings. So that if you were doing well, that was God's blessing. So Jesus is going to continue this theme today of turning that situation on its head by continuing and saying, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Now, really important, what's going to be the case with this blessing and the next two, so verses 4, 5, and 6, is Jesus is proclaiming blessings on situations that you wouldn't seek out. Now, what do I mean when I say that? You don't wake up in the morning and say, "Today I'm going to choose to mourn so that I'll get God's blessing." So sometimes when you read a devotional book or another piece of Christian literature, it'll say something like, "Well, here are the 10 steps to living a blessed life," or "Here's the 10 steps to living a purpose-driven," or whatever word they put on it. And some of those can be helpful in a lot of ways. What Jesus is doing here is very different, because no one sets out to mourn. One ends up mourning because one is undergoing the slings and arrows of living in this life. We use the word mourn most often when we've lost someone close to us, and of course that's a good picture of what Jesus is saying. So obviously, one doesn't seek out to be in that place. One ends up mourning because of the trials of life, and Jesus proclaims God's blessing on those folks. Now, there's one caveat here that I'll mention, in that you might seek out to mourn in solidarity with those who have suffered loss. So a close friend of yours suffers a huge loss. When you mourn with them, that obviously is something you would take onto yourself. I heard just the other day this, I didn't know this about a particular, I can't remember which Native American tribe this was, but it was one of the major Native American tribes. Actually has no word for "I love you." But when they say that same sentiment, their language actually translates into "I will suffer with you," or "I will suffer for you." That's very telling, because it shows us that that love and solidarity and empathy is the word I'm looking for, are so intertwined. So you might not be in a situation where you've suffered a loss, but when you bring another person's loss into your experience by mourning with them, now that, as a caveat, would be a situation where you would choose mourning. But in general, it's not something you seek out. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. So we've got blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, meek is a very interesting word. We don't really use it very much. And I've read lots of commentaries on the correct translation of this word. One of them that stuck with me was that meek certainly is not something you would seek out, because it's this sort of patience through suffering because there's no option. So, in fact, I remember one commentator saying, a dog that has been ruthlessly beaten to the point where it has no fight left in it is meek in the way that this word means. Now I know that's a troubling image, but you think of someone with just no fight left in them, someone who's meek because there's no option, because they see no hope. There's no gumption, no drive, because it's been taken away from them by the trials of the world. Now that, of course, for Jesus to proclaim blessing on that person, is very, very counter to the way we usually think of what blessing means. So blessed are those who are suffering, through trial and see no hope outside of their situation. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Now, how does that play into this theme of things you don't seek out? Well, if you're hungering and thirsting for righteousness, it means you don't have it. People who are already righteous don't need to hunger after righteousness. So Jesus is proclaiming blessing on those who recognize that they are not good, or that they are not righteous, that they're not where they need to be. So this is the opposite of the proud, prideful, say, Pharisees or Sadducees, as described in the Scriptures, who would be proud of their religious standing. Rather than that, blessed are those who know they're not holy, who know they're not righteous, and God's blessings are upon them. Now that's a fascinating thing to think about. He's not going so far as to say blessed are wicked people, but the difference being that a wicked person may not care if they're wicked. A person who's hungering and thirsting after righteousness recognizes the goodness of God's law and sees that themselves are not meeting it. And they want to be there. They feel called towards living a holy life, but they're constantly in knowledge of the fact that they're not there. And it says they will be filled. So Jesus proclaiming blessing that those who truly desire to be righteous will find the aid of God in doing that. But once again, a state you wouldn't seek out. If you were going to choose when you wake up in the morning, you wouldn't choose to hunger and thirst for righteousness. You would choose to be righteous. But those who recognize that they're not there is where the blessings are proclaimed. Now, a lot of commentators have pointed out, and this is why we're going to stop here, that there's sort of a break in the Beatitudes, that these first Beatitudes are proclaimed on, like I say, these situations that you don't choose to be in. The second half, sort of, are situations you do choose. So next time we're going to start with the merciful. So blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. So one does choose to be merciful, but this first section, as we've said, these countercultural blessings are proclaimed on situations that you don't seek out, that you just end up in because of the harshness of the world. And so Jesus is proclaiming those blessings on those people. Beautiful, beautiful language from the Lord about how blessing is found in unexpected places and for those people who have given up hope in themselves maybe, or in that given up hope that their situation will change from the outside. And blessing indeed resides with those people. We'll stop there for today. Thank you for listening. As always, thank you for the opportunity to serve as your pastor. Please do let me know if you have any pastoral needs. It's hard in these days when we're not getting together as regular as we could to keep up with everybody like I'd like. So please do give me a call, send me an email, and connect with me if you have any needs whatsoever. We'd like to hear from you. God bless you, and we will see you soon.